had a pretty good offseason themselves. Brought in Joe Harris and Monte Morris, so they look to continue to have a nice blend of vets with their guys, and have brought in Ausar Thompson and might have enough to make that push this upcoming season with Cade back from injury for day one, with Ivy in year two, with Duren in year two, with Wiseman in for a full season now. It's a lot of fun teams at the bottom of the East.
I love
You want to go first, Gabe?
I love it, man. The Pistons, these teams, this trio of teams. I said after the Bulls, I said, y'all want to talk more positive? This is like yes, I'm so happy to talk about them section of the East because the Pistons just have been doing a great job for years. And you guys can disagree with me, but I like what they did this offseason as well. They did not bring any more big men. That was already a good sign because they're already trying to decide which ones they want to keep. Had a high draft pick. They already know their number one guy is Cade. So they brought in a guy in Ausar who, while he's probably not going to play at the point guard position, even though he's kind of been touted as like a 1, a 2, a 3. What he was like even listed as on mock drafts and everything just varied so heavily. But he seems like he just has so much upside that putting him on this roster, it should fit in well. But if he doesn't end up panning out, there's already so much talent here that like I think it'll end up being okay in the long run. However, I do think he'll be quite good. Joe Harris and Monte Morris, these are two vets who are going to fill a good role. Having a good playmaker like Cade on the court, just giving him a shooter to work with, and Joe Harris, one of the best in the league at that. And then if you want to rest Cade some minutes after that, the other guard you brought in, Monte Morris, a premier backup point guard. So really what they've done there in strengthening that guard spot is just going to be quite nice. And then the biggest thing with them, I think, is just going to be the coaching change. I think so much has happened that people aren't really talking about it anymore. But this is a roster that not only has this young talent that has now brought in some solid vets, but is also now led at the helm by a guy who took a team to an NBA Finals, who took a team who was perennially out of the playoffs at the bottom of the West and took them to where they were a year in, year out contender. And if he can just echo some of that, the Pistons are just on track to be a great franchise for years to come. They've done such a good job with just stockpiling talent. And at least for the next 3-4 years, I really can't see things going too poorly in Detroit. Like, it looks fun. It's young, so the expectation shouldn't be too high yet. As long as they're like a playing team this year, I think they're definitely on track to do what they should be. But it's bright. The future is very bright here, and it's going to be really interesting to see because we say the same thing about the Magic, the Pacers, and the Pistons of this team could really make a play-in, playoff type jump. And while we predict falls in certain franchises like the Bulls, the Raptors, the Hawks, even the Sixers could look wildly different in a year or so, but some teams will have to fall off for all these guys to move up. I don't know exactly who it's going to be. You can definitely name some over others, but this East is looking real competitive the more we get into this depth, and we just see, I feel really good about them as well.
Yeah, I think the big move was Monty. I think that was what started their offseason from being – or started it to make it a good one. But I also like getting Monte Morris. I'm surprised for the value that he went for. A lot of teams that aren't already on that contender status stage didn't try and go after him because him as a backup point guard, that makes him one of the best at that position in the league. Probably the best now. It was either him or Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones probably going to be starting. So Monte Morris is the premier backup point guard that you would want. Getting him for no value, I think that's a definite upgrade over what they've been running for the last few years. Cade coming back in his own is just big because he missed a year, pretty much a full year of development, which sucks. But I think Cade's going to take a big leap, especially with Monty Williams being his head coach. I'm excited just to see what he does this year, him and Jaden Ivey together. At first, I wasn't the biggest fan of taking Ausar Thompson, but I feel like he can play a lot of different roles for this team. I think he can be a really good defender on that wing. So I like just getting a lot of good talent that can play on the ball. Hopefully these guys learn how to play off the ball more. I think that would be a big piece in their development, but that's something a little more down the line with these guys being year 1, 2, and 3 between him, Cade, and Jaden Ivey. So I'm not too worried about that down the line. And also the Sasser pickup in the draft. I thought they probably could have got him a little later if they wanted to, but like I said, if you like a guy, go ahead and take him. I think he's somebody that can be ready day one since he was a 3 or 4 year guy in college to really come in and produce. You guys know me, big fan of the Pistons, what they've been doing. So this just continues to bolster it. And even like Joe Harris, I believe his contract's coming up soon. So, he's somebody that when he plays, really good 3-point shooter. They lacked wing shooting last season, so he can definitely come in and help in that aspect. So, if they push for the play-in or like push to get an AC, that would be great. But I just want to see development. I want to see which bigs outside of Jalen Duren really like separate themselves from the pack. Is it Wiseman? Is it Isaiah Stewart? Like who are the guys that are going to separate themselves? That's what I'm most excited to watch from this team this year.
Yeah, I definitely like what they've done this offseason, and I'm glad you guys mentioned so prominently the Monty Williams edition, because that's my favorite edition for them this offseason and is the biggest reason I couldn't be absolutely shocked if they make the play-in tournament. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not moved by their offseason to that extent. I think they're comfortably a step behind Orlando. They're comfortably a step behind Indiana for this season. Long term, I still like their future. I think they have a lot of talent on this roster. My problem is I just don't know how this all fits together right now. I think they have a lot of reshuffling of assets that need to be done, specifically for how they fit on the offensive end. Like the spacing we were talking about the Raptors spacing earlier. The Pistons are going to be up there for that too, because Duren's not shooting, Wiseman's not shooting. Stewart's an improved 3-point shooter, but he's not giving you a ton of spacing. Bagley's not a great 3-point shooter. Ausar's not a good 3-point shooter. Cade is an improving 3-point shooter, but is not a great 3-point shooter for the point guard position. Ivy doesn't exactly lay his cap on the 3-point shot either. Like, they don't have many true 3-point shooters on this team. I see guys that will improve in that department, probably Cade, probably Ivy. Ausar's got a long way to go, but specifically for this season, outside of a guy like Joe Harris, outside of a guy like Isaiah Livers, who probably isn't going to be that prominent of a rotational piece, although I do like his upside as some amount of a wing contributor on this team, there's just not much shooting on this team. There's not much spacing on this team. And defensively, I don't think they're anywhere near good enough to make up for it yet. Again, Ausar has upside. Duren has upside. I think Cade has a lot of upside on that end, as does Ivy. But I just don't think they're there yet. I think at best they're like a top 20 defense in the league this year, and their offense has got way too much improvement as far as how the pieces fit and what assets they decide to keep and what assets they decide to move off of to rearrange some things on this team, because there's no way they're keeping all four of their bigs. And Ausar, Cade, and Ivy is an intriguing 3-man group on the perimeter. Is that the long-term trio, or does one of them get moved for some other star down the line? That remains to be seen. So I think we're probably a year or two away from them being at the level of an Orlando, of a level of the Pacers. And like you say, like there's still teams like the Raptors, like the Hawks, like the Bulls that are still going to be competing for that level. So I like where they're going. I like their direction. I think their offseason is still very good. And I think their front office decisions are still very good. The positive thing is you have Monty Williams in. He's in long-term, so you have your guy. And we know Monty can bring a team from a situation that is outside of the play-in looking in, that isn't a great team, and can improve with them, can develop, and can start winning basketball games slowly but surely. So I think with time they're fine, but I'm still not sold on them being quite there yet. I think they're still a year or two away from being quite a postseason team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you can go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. I was just saying I agree.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to, I think that's very valid. I guess I'm just putting a lot of stock into they're going to bring in Monty Williams, and I just have so much trust in him and him maximizing the talent that they have that they may just be able to win basketball games on talent alone. And while the fit of the roster may not be the best, I guess I am just putting so much stock in Monty's going to find a way. And I think me and Reek at least are in agreement that Cade is just so good and he's ready to be that guy that I think it could take them a decent way. Now, will they get out of the play? And no, I could see them being a team that gets a 10 seed or maybe even a 9 seed and gets bounced pretty quickly. But I feel like they might be a team that wins some games that they shouldn't on paper, just because their coaching and scheming might allow them to be better.
Yeah, I think if they got a 9 or 10 seed, that's a successful season in my book. I agree with a lot of what Devin said. A lot of the pieces don't make sense right now. But I'm glad that they didn't do like a Houston and just start throwing money at people like they could have. I just like bringing in just pieces just to fill the gaps for the time being until guys develop more instead of just throwing bread at people. So, you know, the most important thing, Monty locked up for the long run. You got your your young guard, young backcourt. Gabe's gone again. You got your young backcourt. Hopefully, Ausar can like develop, become a capable 3-point shooter. They're just banking on their young guys developing, and I think they'll be fine. But they should. I would like to see like them go and get like a Grant Williams, like throw like an okay offer sheet at him or something like that. Like he's still on the market, that wouldn't be bad. Just to get like some, front court shooting, because Grant's still a really good 3-point shooter, even though like he was in and out of rotation back half of the year. So I think like a move like that could be okay. Isn't Bojan still there though? If I'm not
He
mistaken?
is still there, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He shouldn't be. He needs to be out. That's probably that might be like my biggest issue.
They don't have anyone to play there though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like, they don't have wings, so they have Isaiah Livers and Ausar is going to play there because they have 2 guards already, but they don't really have like promising wing prospects. So
that's right. It's not like the worst issue to have. It just can become a little bit concerning when you start thinking we're trying to develop players, but correct me if I'm wrong, he was the leading scorer on the team last year. And
correct.
What are you developing if you just have this like 30-year-old dude making a bunch of money that is not a part of your long-term future getting the most touches on the team?
Yeah, that's why I was surprised about them drafting Ausar, because I'm like, the gaping hole is on the wing, and even though I think he can play some wing, like there were guys there that are like, okay, these are actually like wing players. Like even though Cam fell all the way to 20, I was like almost sold he was going at 5 to Detroit, but who am I? I don't run an NBA front office.